today we're going to fix the proportions of these characters because they look like children cosplaying even though they're in their 20s. In order for us to be able to fix it, we have to analyze why these proportions don't work. Now, you might think that it's because the head is too big, but it's not necessarily true. You can pull off an adult character with a big head proportion, and no, I'm not talking about chibi characters. Let me give you an example. These characters are from the game Professor Layton. As you can see, a lot of their characters have really big heads, and yet you can tell they're in their 20s or 30s. These characters were inspired by this game. They also have big heads, and yet they look like adults. Now, obviously, the drawing styles are also a huge contributing factor as to why the proportion of the aforementioned drawing doesn't work. Professor Layton games have a very cartoony styles, which is why wacky proportions work perfectly fine. Meanwhile, this is obviously drawn in an anime style, and anime styles tend to follow a more realistic proportions than cartoons. I can totally see how I constructed this. Basically, you use two ovals for the body. I personally don't recommend this method anymore, as you can see the hips look a bit strange. If you like to see how I construct female bodies, I have a video tutorial that you can check by clicking the link in the description. Let me reconstruct this pose using the method that I use. I will maintain the measurement of the head and the overall height. However, I will lengthen the arms to match the measurements we have discussed in the other video. One of the factors I see that is making the old drawing look strange is the shape of the arms and legs. I have discussed this before, but here's a quick refresher. So for the shape of the arms and legs, what you can do is draw a curved line on one side and a straight line on the opposite side. The problem with the old drawing is that I either drew both sides as straight lines, which makes the limb look robotic, or I draw them both curved, which make it look like a balloon. This is even more obvious with this side-by-side comparison. Now, even with the new construction, she still looks like a child rather than an adult. So what we're gonna do is lengthen the legs as well and make her taller. With this new proportion, the character now looks like a teenager. Now, we can lengthen the arms and legs further, but that wouldn't really help. So if we want to make the proportions look more adult, the last thing we can do is make the head smaller, like so. Let's sketch some details today so we can have a comparison. If the face looks familiar to you, the reason is probably because I'm a huge fan of the anime Bleach and Rukia, so you can see where the inspiration came from. Particularly around the eyes, like the way Rukia's eyes were drawn, I really did it similarly. I also added some gloves because it really looks plain if it's just the bare hands, and she looks more like a fighter with those gloves on. Remember that the construction is just a guideline, so if we need to make adjustments so the overall drawing looks good, so be it. Here's the finished sketch. Let's compare it to the old drawing. Look at the day and night comparison. See how the new drawing looks older simply because of the adjustments we made with the proportion. Anyway, let's move on to the guy. I honestly don't know why I put a luchador mask on him. I'm thinking of changing the design later. As you can see, this dude is a muscular character, which makes the big head proportion look even more ridiculous. To fix this, apart from making the head smaller, what we can do is bulk up the chest a bit. Although I don't want to bulk it up too much because I'm not going for a superhero buff. The straight curve technique is actually a quick cheat to imply that the character has muscular limbs. We don't really need to go insane and draw the individual muscle parts since we're going to draw clothing on this. One mistake I made in the old drawing was drawing the arms straight. That made the pose look stiffer than it already is. So what we're gonna do is draw the arms slightly bent. This gives him a bit of a fighting stance even though he's just standing. We're also going to make the legs longer and bulkier. To be fair, the legs will be mostly hidden by the coattail, but it's still important to draw it so that the elements that will be shown won't be misaligned. Props to my 2011 self for adhering to that principle and drawing the legs even though it should not be shown. Although I really find it funny that I somehow put emphasis on the bum. In fairness, I did do it for the new drawing as well. Before we start adding the details, I did mention earlier that I want to change the design of the mask. So let's hop into ye old Google and just search from some mask references.
12 seconds later.
I kinda switched to a helmet rather than a mask because it's more suitable for the character. It's not a perfect design, but that will do for a short notice. For his coat, I'm not gonna wrap the clothing tight around the muscles because the fabric is not spandex but rather a leather coat. Think of Dante from Devil May Cry. This will help the character look more natural rather than a balloon toy. Since the coat is pretty long, I won't really bother drawing the details on the legs but just the boots that are showing to the camera. So here's the old drawing. And here's the new drawing. Let's do a side-by-side comparison. Let me know in the comments what you think. Now, while this looks way better now, let's be honest here, this pose and this camera angle here is super boring. If you put this in your portfolio, it's not going to stand out, so we're going to make a part 2 where we redraw this artwork to make it look even cooler. So be sure to subscribe so that you won't miss it when I post the video. Looking back at the old drawing, I'm pretty sure I learned this oval method for the body in those old how to draw manga books. But upon browsing those old books again, let's just say even the book cover illustration isn't really that amazing, so to speak. So I redrew it and made some improvements. If you like to see how I made this knight even more badass, check out this video here.